It's just business. That's what they said. As if erasing 14 years could be done with a single sentence. I still remember the way the light hit the floor that morning. A Thursday. The kind that pretends to be ordinary until it isn't. I arrived at 8:17 a.m. 3 minutes earlier than usual. The front desk receptionist, who usually smiled, didn't lift her head. I thought it was odd. When my keycard didn't open the second floor development lab, I assumed it was a glitch. I even chuckled to myself. Systems being temperamental again, I muttered. But when I turned, Andrew from IT was standing behind me. Silent. Holding a manila folder. "Ms. Keller, you're needed in room C," he said, not meeting my eyes. Room C. The one with no windows. I walked there quietly. I didn't ask questions. I had already begun to understand. Inside sat a woman from HR I'd only seen once before during compliance training. Her name tag read Sharon. Her blouse was too crisp for a Thursday. Her smile was a practiced curve. Behind her, on the screen, my employee ID photo stared back at me frozen, dated, forgotten. "Please have a seat," she said. I sat. She didn't wait. "Effective immediately, your position has been eliminated due to organizational restructuring. You will receive a severance package outlined in this envelope. Your system access has already been revoked. We ask that you do not return to your desk." That was it. 14 years. 14 years of writing every line of code for their flagship platform. 14 years of onboarding new engineers, debugging legacy systems at 2 a.m., saving entire release cycles by staying late on weekends. Gone. In 7 sentences. I didn't interrupt. I didn't speak. I remember looking at the water glass on the table untouched, room temperature. It reflected the fluorescent lights above, flickering slightly. Like it, I sat still. Trying not to ripple. "I'm sure this comes as a shock," Sharon continued. "But please understand this isn't personal." I nodded once. She pushed the folder toward me with both hands, like presenting an offering she herself didn't believe in. It made a soft sound on the laminate table. I didn't touch it. "You'll be escorted out shortly," she added, as if reading from a script. I wanted to ask who had rewritten the script. When was the rehearsal? When did we all agree I'd be the one cut? But I said nothing. I stood, smoothed my blazer, and adjusted the sleeves, a reflex from too many client demos. My hand brushed the edge of the folder. It felt warm from her palms. That made me pause. In the hallway, 2 security guards waited, not in uniform, but unmistakable. One walked ahead, one behind. I was the threat now. We passed the rows of desks I used to call home. No one turned. No one waved. No one met my eyes. Except James. From DevOps. We'd shared a dozen late-night pizza boxes during sprint weeks. He looked up from his screen. I thought he might say something. His lips parted. Then he looked back down. Silence is a language, too. At the elevator, the guard pressed the button for me. I could have done it myself, but that wasn't the point. Ground floor. The lobby was brighter than I remembered. My reflection in the glass doors looked composed. Too composed. Like someone watching their own exit in third person. Outside, my car sat where I'd left it. Obedient. Waiting. I got in and closed the door. The click echoed louder than I expected. For the first time that morning, I exhaled. I didn't cry. Shock doesn't come with tears. It comes with stillness. Hands on the wheel, I stared ahead. The parking lot was half full. Normal. Indifferent. As if nothing had changed. But something had. Inside me. A weight settled beneath the ribs. Not rage. Not yet. Just weight. Heavy with questions. Why didn't they speak to me first? Why didn't anyone warn me? Had they planned this for weeks? I opened the manila folder. 2 pages. Legal phrasing. Severance amounts. An NDA clause. 1 sentence thanking me for my dedicated years of service. 14 years. Condensed into 12 words. I drove home slowly. Every red light felt longer. Every pedestrian looked like someone I used to work with. I didn't wave. When I reached my apartment, I didn't go in immediately. I sat in the parking garage, letting the engine idle. That's when it started sinking in. They didn't just fire me. They erased me. No goodbye email. No announcement. No transition. Just silence. That was when the dull ache gave way to something sharper. Not fury. Not bitterness. A flicker. Of recognition. Because this wasn't the first time I'd seen silence used as a weapon. There had been signs. Small at first. My name removed from release notes. Access rights that expired mysteriously. Invitations to key meetings that never arrived. I'd explained them away. Told myself I was overthinking. But now I understood. They had been preparing for this. I looked down at the severance papers. My signature was supposed to go on the bottom. I closed the folder. Not yet. The wheels had been turning for a while. I'd just been too busy building the machine to notice. But I was awake now. And they weren't ready for that. Not even close. They think they fired me that morning. But the truth is I'd been disappearing long before the letter came. There's a strange kind of grief that comes not from a sudden loss, but from a slow erasure. The kind where, day by day, you realize the ground you stood on has quietly shifted beneath you and no one told you. For me, it started with a calendar invite. It was a strategic roadmap session, the kind I'd led for years. My name wasn't on the list. I checked again. Nothing. I messaged my manager. Just keeping the group lean, he replied. We'll sync later. We never did. At first, I told myself it was an oversight. That I was too senior, maybe, and they assumed I was beyond the operational meetings now. But then came the project tags. Tickets I used to be auto-assigned were now routed elsewhere. Code reviews bypassed me. My GitHub access downgraded quietly, without explanation. It was like watching fog roll in. Slow. Soft. But eventually, it covers everything. I started at that company 14 years ago before the Series A, before we even had a product. Back then, it was just me, 2 co-founders, and a whiteboard stained with coffee. I remember sleeping in the office during our first rollout. I remember debugging through Christmas Eve while the others were home. I remember saying yes to everything because I believed in what we were building. I wasn't the loudest. I didn't play politics. But I delivered. Always. For a while, that was enough. But things change. The first real fracture came with the rebranding. We got new logos. New taglines. A new leadership team flown in from real tech companies. Overnight, our culture became glossy, sanitized. Meetings turned into theater. Metrics mattered more than meaning. And the work? The work stayed but the credit didn't. At one all-hands, the VP demoed a personalization feature I'd built from scratch. He clicked through the interface with pride, throwing around phrases like proprietary logic and adaptive thresholds. I waited for a nod, even a passing mention. None came. Afterward, I approached him. "Glad the feature's working," I said. He blinked. "Which one?" He didn't even know. I began to keep a log. Not of accomplishments but of disappearances. My name removed from the architecture deck. My seat at the product steering meeting reassigned. A younger engineer fresh from grad school introduced as the new brain behind the algorithm. I smiled. I always smiled. But inside, something began to detach. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was a kind of quiet mourning for the version of the company I had loved, and the version of myself I'd left buried somewhere between build versions. They stopped inviting me to user testing, to executive briefings. Even team happy hours started going unannounced. I'd find out only after photos appeared in Slack the next morning, me empty desk always visible in the background. Still, I stayed. Because that's what people like me do. We don't storm out. We don't slam doors. We observe. We adapt. We store everything. Then one afternoon, I received a welcome email that wasn't meant for me. It had been sent to my inbox by mistaking an onboarding pack for my replacement. Same role. Same job description. Different name. That night, I sat at my desk until midnight. Not working, just staring. The room was dark except for my monitor's glow. Outside, the building's janitor mopped the same corner of the lobby he always did. The rhythm of his movement was the only thing that felt honest. I knew then they were phasing me out. They just hadn't told me yet. But the system had. I wasn't surprised when I found my name missing from the commit logs a few weeks later. Or when my badge started glitching at the main entrance. Or when our CTO referred to me in past tense during a cross-functional check-in. Keller used to own that pipeline, right? Used to. I was still there. But I wasn't. And they knew. The cruelty wasn't in the firing, it was in the unspoken campaign before it. The silencing. The shrinking of space. The way no one said anything, even as they watched it happen. Coworkers I mentored became managers who now looped me out of strategy calls. Engineers I trained presented my frameworks as theirs. And I let them. Not because I didn't notice, but because I needed to see how far it would go. The final test came 3 weeks before the termination. I submitted an internal proposal, a redesign of our anomaly detection logic. Something we'd been struggling with for months. It was detailed. Precise. Battle-tested. I sent it directly to product leadership. No reply. 10 days later, I saw the same proposal rebranded, reformatted, and shared by someone else during sprint planning. They didn't even change the variable names. I laughed. Not because it was funny. But because it confirmed everything. By the time Sharon from HR called me into that windowless room, I had already let go. My work had been taken. My voice ignored. My access revoked. The firing was just punctuation. I looked at her. At the severance folder. At the words, "It's not personal." And for the first time in a long time, I believed them. It wasn't personal. It was systematic. And systems can be rewritten. I wasn't fired because I failed. I was fired because I knew too much. But they didn't know how much I kept. The day I discovered what they had done to the algorithm was quiet. No breaking news. No dramatic reveal. Just me, alone at my kitchen counter, coffee in hand, staring at a piece of code I had written without my name on it. It started with a version release note. I wasn't supposed to see it. It was sent to a public engineering thread by mistake, someone on the junior dev team sharing the latest deployment status with external contractors. It included a changelog. I scrolled, not expecting much. But then I saw it, a module tagged predictive core optimization. I froze. That was mine. Not conceptually, not vaguely, not partially mine. For years ago, I had designed that core logic from scratch, recursive pattern modeling for anomaly detection in high-volume datasets. It wasn't just clever, it was foundational. It had unlocked a whole new tier of enterprise contracts. I'd written every iteration, debugged it through 3 system migrations, and protected its integrity like my name depended on it because it did. I clicked the repository link. No commit history tied to me. No mentions in the documentation. Not even a footnote. It was as if I had never existed. And then, I saw the name attached to the recent commits: Jordan Leung. One of the VP's new hires. A name that had shown up in leadership meetings just as I was being pushed out. Young, credentialed. Disposable. I should have felt fury. But what I felt was clarity. This wasn't accidental. It wasn't careless. It was coordinated. I reopened my old personal backup. Not the company's repo mine. Timestamped, encrypted, complete. I started digging. Line by line, I matched code structures. Function names had been changed slightly. Variable names rephrased. Comments rewritten to sound more modern. But the logic, the engine underneath, was mine. Undeniably. And I had proof. Every Slack conversation. Every draft. Every internal pitch deck with my name on the concept. Every timestamped test I had run on staging servers. Even voice memos I'd left for myself after all-nighters, describing edge case bugs only the creator could understand. I didn't rage. I archived it all. Because now, it wasn't just about job loss. It was theft. A few days later, I created a mirror doc of the original architecture proposal, annotated with timestamps, file paths, Jira references, Slack thread links, even cross-team approvals from years past. I named it Foundation Original Authorship Proof version 1.0. I didn't share it. Not yet. Instead, I kept watching. They rolled out the updated algorithm 2 weeks after I left. Major product release. High fanfare. LinkedIn posts. A TechCrunch article quoting the CTO, praising the team's innovative approach to anomaly prediction. I bookmarked it. But then came the bugs. Clients began posting on forums about detection failures. False positives skyrocketing. Critical alerts missed during off-peak hours, exactly the kind of scenario I'd built my original logic to prevent. It made sense. Because what they'd copied was the shell. But they didn't have the soul. The optimization logic I'd layered over months of modeling wasn't in their version. The fallback trees. The override heuristics. The calibration routine that adjusted sensitivity thresholds in real time, all missing. Because they didn't understand it. They only saw code. They didn't know the scars behind it. The edge cases I'd discovered while crawling through 5 years of dirty, unpredictable client data. The nights I'd spent running simulations against real traffic patterns. They couldn't fake that. And now, they were falling apart. But still I said nothing. Because panic is most effective when it echoes. That month, I called my former intern, now a PM at a different firm. I asked her a hypothetical: if you had proof that your core IP had been misattributed in a commercial launch, what would you do? She was silent for a beat. Then she said, "You lawyer up." I already had. A quiet message to my attorney, encrypted files sent in a private folder. He read everything. He didn't ask if it was true, he asked when I wanted to act. Not yet, I replied. First, I needed to make sure the hole they dug was deep enough. I subscribed to all their product feedback channels. Created a fake account to join beta test discussions. Tracked bug reports on GitHub under a pseudonym. Even joined a few user feedback calls pretending to be an enterprise partner evaluating rollout stability. The truth unraveled in real time. The algorithm wasn't just failing, it was crumbling. One enterprise client issued a formal escalation. A contract was paused. A promised pilot stalled. One of the VP's team posted a now-deleted message on a dev forum asking if anyone had experience retrofitting undocumented fallback models into real-time logic systems. I had to laugh. Because the fallback was mine. I waited. Until one evening, I got a message on my old personal email, anonymously routed, but clearly from inside the company. "I don't know what they did to you. But it's falling apart. And they're starting to panic." No signature. Just a screenshot of an internal dashboard with a bright red header: urgent rollback required. System instability detected. I didn't reply. But I opened the document I had quietly been updating: Foundation Original Authorship Proof version 3.4. And I added one more line: redundant fallback logic omitted in unauthorized derivative build. Resulting failures align with absence of legacy calibration structure, authored solely by K. Hart. I was ready. But I still wasn't going to strike yet. Because when a machine malfunctions, you don't fix it by shouting. You let it run until the system crashes itself. Then, you show the blueprints. You don't burn bridges when you can let them collapse on their own. The more they stumbled, the more patient I became. While bugs rippled through their systems and panicked calls flooded their customer service lines, I did not rush in with legal threats or public accusations. That wasn't my way. Because real power isn't loud. It's leveraged. And I had leverage now. First, I hired an external cybersecurity audit firm quietly. One with a specialty in forensic software lineage. I gave them limited access to my personal backups, documentation, and development logs. Not to file a lawsuit yet. Just to build an impartial report. One that could be used later, should the moment come. They didn't ask many questions. The evidence was clear. They called me a few days later. "Do you want the executive summary, or the full war chest?" I told them, both. The report arrived in two formats: one digestible for media and investors, and one dense enough for IP attorneys and federal review boards. Every point of similarity between their new system and my code was laid bare. Annotated, time-stamped, signed. I encrypted it and stored 3 copies: one for my lawyer, one in a cloud vault, and one printed, sealed, in a lockbox. Then, I started reaching out. Not to journalists. Not yet. But to the right people. People who had once backed me in rooms where I'd been too quiet. People who'd seen what I built. Ex-clients. Former board members. Senior engineers now scattered across the industry. I didn't accuse. I reminded. A coffee here, a LinkedIn message there. A quiet dinner with someone who'd sat in the pitch meeting where I first proposed the algorithm. Casual, gentle, but calculated. I asked questions, offered updates on what I was building now. I mentioned without emphasis how strange it was to see familiar code break down in unfamiliar hands. The silence after those conversations was always heavy. They understood. Because this wasn't a smear campaign. It was a slow awakening. Meanwhile, their system buckled under pressure. Another escalation leaked to the forums. An anonymous post by someone claiming to be on their SRE team described a critical failure in our fallback structure due to legacy dependency gaps. I didn't comment. But I screenshotted it. And still, I waited. One night, I got a text from an unknown number. They're panicking. Jordan just pulled an all hands. Blaming QA. You were right. No signature. But I knew who it was from. Jordan Leung, the name they'd pasted over mine, was being thrown to the wolves. That's the thing about stolen brilliance, it doesn't come with instructions. And I had never written mine down. But I had another plan. Through a mutual connection, I reached out to a firm that had been circling a large contract with the Man International Logistics Company struggling with fraud detection at scale. I offered to consult quietly an anomaly prediction strategy. No strings. No IP transfer. Just insight. They agreed. Within 3 meetings, I'd identified gaps in their deployment plan that mirrored the exact issues plaguing my former company. And when they asked how I knew, I said because I wrote the solution they tried to replicate. And now I'm building something better. They paused. Then they asked, can we pilot with you instead? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I said, let me introduce you to something we've been developing, something proprietary, auditable, and actually built to scale. Because I hadn't just been waiting. I'd been building. With 2 former engineers from my old team both quietly pushed out like I was one of my early interns turned full-stack savant, we had been crafting a new engine. Not just a rewrite of the old algorithm, but a smarter one. Modular. Transparent. Built for environments where integrity wasn't a nice to have, it was survival. The company signed a letter of intent. And I smiled, not because I was replacing them, but because I was already 2 steps ahead. But the real turning point came during an investor call. I hadn't planned to listen in. But an acquaintance forwarded me the link to a public portion of their quarterly update. We're currently addressing challenges in predictive performance, the CTO said, his voice tight. The rollout has encountered some unexpected regressions. No mention of me. Of course not. But then a question from an analyst, can you clarify the origin of your core logic? There are rumors circulating that it's derived from legacy work by a former employee. There was a pause. And I could feel the air in that room freeze. We can't comment on ongoing evaluations, the CTO finally said. That was all I needed. Because it meant one thing: they were scared. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with my attorney. We didn't talk about suing. We talked about controlling the narrative. That afternoon, a curated press packet was delivered to 3 industry outlets. Not a leak. A dossier. It included the audit summary, anonymized client testimonials, code lineage diagrams, and a single-line statement from me: innovation without integrity collapses. We chose to build instead. No names. No direct accusations. Just undeniable contrast. Within 48 hours, one outlet ran the headline, "The Ghost in the Machine: How a Fired Engineer Quietly Built the Future They Tried to Steal." And suddenly, the silence was broken. The next day, a reporter reached out for comment. I declined. But I updated the footer on my company's website to include a new tagline: Foundations Matter. So do founders. That week, we closed 3 contracts. The fallout on their end? I didn't follow every detail. Some things I prefer to hear from others. But I do know this 2 VPs stepped down. Their stock slipped. And the engineering team quietly posted a job listing titled Seeking Senior Architect with Experience in Fallback Anomaly Modeling. I didn't apply. Because I wasn't available. I was busy writing documentation for the new systemy system this time, with attribution built into the code. Because revenge isn't about noise. It's about ownership. And I had just reclaimed mine. The day the first investor backed out, I knew the tide had turned. It started with a terse press release due to internal restructuring. We are reevaluating our strategic partnerships. No names. Just a silent withdrawal, a calculated distancing from a sinking ship. By week's end, the company holding my algorithm was in crisis. I watched it unravel with a stillness I hadn't known I possessed. Not rage. Not satisfaction. Inevitable collapse. Outside, the headquarters gleamed. The CEO smiled in interviews. Behind closed doors, they scrambled, patching holes they couldn't understand, struggling with a system rejecting them from within. They hadn't just stolen my work. They stole the understanding behind it. The bugs weren't random, they were consequences of design decisions only I'd grasped. Logic trees, performance tweaks, instinct-calibrated thresholds no one else could replicate. Deals collapsed, a demo failed, and Singapore legal flagged IP disputes buried in audit logs. The team trying to fix it hit walls, code they didn't recognize, logic they couldn't explain. Then came the emails. Former colleagues, engineers trapped inside, legal staff who once avoided me all reaching out in encrypted messages, apologies, warnings, admissions of ignored truths. Claire, one read, "We didn't realize how much you held together." "They're undoing what you built, but it's crumbling," said another. I said nothing. The CTO who approved my firing, Andrew Fielding, held a shaky emergency town hall. Rumors swirled, board losing confidence. An audit was triggered by a client complaint. Pandora's box opened, falsified logs, authorship disputes. My name appeared repeatedly as rightful owner. I expected this and planned for it. My legal team quietly released timestamped repositories, version histories, security logs, all tied to my digital signature. In tech, no ghosts, only fingerprints. Mine were everywhere. The case went public quickly. Articles called it the most brazen intellectual heist in enterprise AI and the woman they tried to erase. Investors panicked. Stock plunged. The board acted. Fielding was suspended. HR leads resigned. Legal admitted inadequate documentation, a hollow phrase that became a meme. Then came Fielding's email, "Claire, I don't expect forgiveness. But I underestimated you. We all did. If there's a way to talk, you have my number." I read it twice and archived it. No anger. Only clarity. They didn't just fire me, they deleted me. Thought they could rewrite history. But I knew the system intimately. I understood its weaknesses better than they ever could. When I withdrew, I carried the truth, the data, the receipts. I waited. The lawsuits settled quietly, but not cheaply. My name reinstated as author. The company lost exclusive rights. Execs retired early or were reassigned. Fielding vanished. Their flagship product was shelved indefinitely. Meanwhile, my company rose. Clients they lost came to us not because we shouted louder, but because we delivered. I remember our first post-settlement contract, a healthcare AI system we'd quietly developed. The client said, "We trust you because you fought for your work." That means something. It did. Not just for me, but for my team engineers silenced elsewhere, innovators told to stay in lanes. We didn't just write code, we rewrote rules. I never replied to Fielding. There was nothing left to say. His silence, the same that erased me, became my answer. 16 months since the letter, the manila envelope, the windowless room, the silence. 16 months since I walked out carrying nothing but knowing everything. People ask what justice felt like. Satisfaction? Vengeance? Televised reckoning? It didn't. Justice came quietly. As freedom. Now, I work in a place without frosted glass or titles. Just a shared table, natural light, and engineers who know why every decision matters. We don't steal or hide behind legacy. And yet, we move faster than they ever did. Nothing weighs like politics. Nothing lifts like clarity. The product we built, the real one, has grown stronger than I imagined. Pilots, proofs of concept, consulting engagements. Word spread not about what we made, but how we made it. With care. With memory. With names still attached. Our platform powers fraud detection for 2 major logistics firms. A health data consortium on board last quarter. One of the top 5 banks sent a letter of intent after a test run reduced anomaly response lag by 38. Built on principles they called outdated: transparency, ownership, elegant architecture. Sometimes the simplest things endure longest. I still write code. Every morning, before emails or meetings, I spend an hour in silence: keyboard, coffee, the hum of fans. It's my breathing. I don't run from what happened. Nor carry it. It lives in the background like an old commit log. Immutable. Archived. Referenced when necessary. They've reached out twice. Once via Legalto Coalition's legacy structures I declined. Another time, a board member asked if I'd consider advising. I said I'm busy. Busy mentoring quiet engineers told they can't lead. Busy rewriting documentation for humans, not auditors. Busy reminding my team stability isn't weakness. It's strength. I don't look back at loss. Yes, 14 years vanished in 7 sentences. But what I gained after the clarity, space, and those who refused to forget was worth more than I imagined. Tech teaches loudness, chasing speed and press. But those I respect move differently. They build what matters. Then quietly walk away when it no longer does. That's what I did. Maybe that's why the story stuck. Not because it was dramatic. But because it was real. Because somewhere, someone else is being erased. Quietly. Strategically. Efficiently. Maybe they'll remember this: your work is yours. Even when renamed. Even when pushed out. Even when the room is silent. Especially then. Keep records. Keep truth. Keep calm. Let them think they won. Then build better.